Okay.
What kind of year has Stephen Gilmore had?
Stefan had an excellent year. He's got an excellent year going, and I believe he's going to be okay to play. He got bumped a little bit on the kickoff cover. He didn't see the guy. And we're trying to teach our guys to keep their head on the swivel, because one guy came over there and really headbutted him. He didn't see him coming. He sort of snuck in behind one of our other players. If we were in the NFL, that guy would have been fined at least $50,000, because I mean, he crown of his head hit Stefan right upside the face and knocked him out a little bit. And we had a guy knocked out the exact same way last week down in Florida, the opening kickoff. So hopefully our guys will look around a little bit, because sometimes that can happen, I guess. But Stefan's played very well. Yeah, he had the big intercept against Furman, and then of course he had one against Florida, and he's played DB very well. I don't think he's given up much at all to his guy over the course of the season thus far.
Do really good cornerbacks tend to get overlooked sometimes because people just avoid them so much they're not in on a ton of action?
Oh, I don't know. I guess you could say that maybe, but he's had a good year, tackles well, and so forth.
Coach, how helpful would it be that you beat Florida down there in a summer environment, and their offense is a little bit like Clemson's?
No, I don't think Florida's offense is quite like Clemson. They got running quarterbacks, and they did a bunch of that stuff. And fortunately, we were able to get ahead, and they started throwing about every down. And that's the formula everyone would like. That's what they'd like to do to us. That's what we'll try to do to them. And last year, we were fortunate to get ahead a bit and stop their running game, and they ended up throwing all over the place. So that's what each team tries to do: stop the run first and make the other team start throwing all the time. And usually bad things happen to that team and has to throw all the time, as we know.
Do you think Stevens played more consistently this year?
Yeah, he's played much more consistently this year, and he needs to play these next 2 weeks very well. And our entire team, if we play close to our potential here these next 2 weeks, we'll see where we are. That's the only thing we can really concern ourselves with. Sometimes the other team doesn't play very well. For an example, Troy, Oklahoma State only beat them by 3 this year, early in the season, 41-38. And Troy's got a good offense, but they fumbled the ball all over the place, and maybe we knocked it loose and had some defensive scores, and it just got out of hand for them. I don't know how great we played. If we beat them 38-10 or 17, that would have been fine, but the scores it got out of hand right there in that first half. We didn't do much at all the second half, so it was a little disappointing that our backup guys didn't play as well as we had hoped. But anyway, that one's history and behind us. But sometimes in games, you don't know how the other team's going to play. If they have a bad day, then that's certainly helpful for you. But you can't go into it thinking that they're going to have a bad day. You got to play the game the very best you can.
And is there anything to how Stevens played in cold weather games, or is that just coincidence that they've been some of his poor games?
I think so. The Arkansas game was not that cold. It really wasn't. Sean Elliott had on a short sleeve shirt the entire game down there. Most of us just had. Yeah, we've talked a little bit to our guys. When we went out for warm-ups, you thought we were playing in Green Bay on Saturday night, the way some of our guys looked. And we also remind them, if you guys don't play in the NFL, and of course 80% of our guys think they are, you got to play in cold weather. We tell them all the time, man, you got to love playing in cold weather if you're going to play in the NFL. So hopefully our guys will come around a bit. But that Arkansas game was not cold, and I think the weather's supposed to be similar to the Arkansas game. So it should be a beautiful night up there.
Follow up on Stephen. Does the Florida game show that he's maybe playing a little bit better on the road as well? His home record is pretty good in his career, but his road record is maybe not as good.
Yeah, we've all played a little better lately, thus far. But again, everything is thus far. We'll be on the road here these last 2, and usually, well, in the SEC, when you win a championship, it's going to be in the dome, so it's not going to be at home. So you gotta play well both places.
Steve, Clemson's well aware that you guys ran all over them without Marcus Lattimore last year. Would you expect them to place more of an emphasis on stopping Lattimore than any team you faced, maybe even something like the Patriots, the way they played Marshall Faulk in that Super Bowl, knocking him around even in plays that he doesn't touch the ball?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'm sure they'll have a bunch of guys up around the line of scrimmage to stop our running game and try to stop Marcus. And we may be, we may need to throw a little bit more or a little less. You never know until the game gets going. I mean, we started out against Georgia. We didn't think we were going to run him 37 times. And the Florida game, we didn't think he'd run 40, but we got ahead. And it seemed like he was making yards regardless. They had a bunch of guys up there too. So, but we know we got to run the ball. That's what we do best. But we also need to keep firing at Alshon and these other receivers every time chance that looks good.
Kind of taking that to the next step with the fact that he's had some games where he's carried the ball 37, 42 times. Last week, only getting 7 carries, sitting out in the second half. Is that a blessing in disguise to have that Troy game there to give him some rest going into the final 2 games where you might need him again?
Well, he carried 40 the week before, and he was fine at the beginning of the Troy game, and of course he was fine at halftime. And that's the kind of players that we have. He could have probably made 250, 300 yards rushing if that was our goal against Troy, but that's not our goal. And Alshon was fine sitting out the second half also, and I mean, he could have run up his stats a whole bunch, probably second half also. But our guys understand it was an opportunity for some other players that hadn't played much this year. So we got a wonderful group of team guys that really believe that it's all about team, and whatever we achieve as a team is what we're all going to remember this year.
Coach, you were talking earlier just about special teams coverage and some of your guys not being in position. I know it didn't hurt you in the Florida game, but you did allow a big run back in that game. Are you concerned maybe against Clemson? If they get into a low-scoring game and have the big kickoff return, if you guys allow it, it could really affect the outcome.
Yeah, we actually covered a lot better last week. Our kickoff return was pretty sorry. We couldn't block those Troy guys. They stormed right down the field on us. Yeah, I wish we were a little bit better returning kicks, but we haven't been very good for a while. But our cover guys were good last week, and they'll need to be good again this week.
Steve, how does Clemson, South Carolina, the rivalry compare to other rivalries you've been involved in your career?
I think it's the biggest one in this state. How's that? In the other states, they are the biggest. I don't know. I don't rate them. That's up to you sports writers to rate them. But it's the biggest one in our state. I think that's for sure.
Coach, when you sat down at the beginning of the season and you kind of mapped out where you wanted this team to be Clemson week, is it where you want it to be?
Well, it's pretty good. It's pretty good where we are right now with the opportunity to play for everything that's out there. So obviously we've not been here before, but we did set a goal of getting here. So the guys are starting to understand that we can still achieve more goals that are out there. We set several goals every year and see how many we can hit. And one of them is always beating Clemson. One of them was to win 9 games this year. So we're in position if we can finish. If we can finish strongly, we have a chance.
Steve, last couple of questions on several occasions you've talked about a wonderful team, a wonderful group of guys that work together, team first. That's not something we've heard from you a lot about the South Carolina squad the last few years. What's made the biggest difference?
Oh, I just think the players, the seniors, the leaders on the team, and the young guys coming in also are more team-oriented guys. We've got a lot of players that actually played on state championship teams. So they understand. Marcus up at Burns High School, The night I went to see him play, I think he had 4 carries the first half. They were throwing it all over the place, and I think they were ahead of a team from Myrtle Beach, about 42-0 at half. And I think he got a few carries the second half, but he had a lot of games he didn't do much at all. But Burns obviously emphasized team. Stephon Gilmore up there at South Point. I think those guys are playing for another state championship this year. So they've all come from, I think, maybe some better high school programs than maybe some of the guys in the past. But still, it depends how the older guys have their attitude, the way they act and talk and so forth. Generally rubs off on the younger guys, and so that's been helpful. And when your star players are really team oriented, that's when you have a chance to really have good teams. And Alshon's been excellent also. Alshon has a great attitude, good practice player, and so it's we're in position if we can finish strongly. That's what we're going to try to do. Okay? All right. See y'all next time.